Basic fact that he was illegally inside our country and had a lawful deportation order made him subject to removal back to his home country of El Salvador.
Welcome to Breaking the News. I'm Kent Erdahl in for Jana. In the last 2 hours, you heard it, the White House made it clear that its standoff with the courts over deportation flights to El Salvador will continue. The Trump administration initially admitted that it had deported Kilmar Armando Abrega Garcia to El Salvador in error, and the Supreme Court unanimously then ruled that the administration should facilitate his release. But the White House is now claiming that he has ties to the MS-13 gang, a terrorist organization, even though he's never been charged for gang activity. Now, this all comes hours after a federal judge in a related case found probable cause for the Trump administration to be in criminal contempt unless it gives everyone on those flights a chance to challenge their removal from the country. Jessica Hart is here to explain where that leaves us tonight.
Kent, the judge gave the Trump administration until April 23rd to explain what steps it's taking to comply with the order. If it doesn't, the judge says he'll take steps toward prosecution.
Bring him home!
Calls to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia home reverberate throughout the country.
We have to stop this.
He was deported to El Salvador without due process, according to a federal judge. People in St. Paul are demanding the Trump administration bring Abrego Garcia home. Now, a federal judge has found probable cause for contempt against the Trump administration for violating his order over deportation flights. But the administration doesn't believe they're wrong.
This is one that is not going to be resolved quickly, is my guess.
Tim Johnson, a political science and law professor at the University of Minnesota, says the Supreme Court, in an unsigned opinion, said the Trump administration needs to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return. He says the situation has spurred a constitutional crisis.
Oh, we're absolutely here. With the administration continuing to defy these orders, you are now for the first time seeing a federal court judge saying, I am going to put sanctions on you, that is the administration, if you finally do not follow these orders.
Johnson says there are two types of contempt, civil and criminal. In a 46-page opinion, the federal judge detailed his reasonings to pursue criminal contempt, which Johnson says will be hard to do.
The problem with criminal contempt in this case is the sanctions are carried out by the U.S. Marshals. And the U.S. Marshals are actually part of the executive branch. So the president could defy the courts even more, if you will, and tell the marshals, you're not going to arrest anybody within the Department of Justice or any lawyers who work with me, and you're not going to enforce them paying fines if a judge were to levy fines.
He says civil contempt would be enforced by a federal judge.
Essentially, you say to the lawyers, and maybe other officials at the Department of Justice, or in fact, maybe all the way up to the Attorney General, you are going to jail until you follow my order. Period. End of story.
But this story is far from over, and it's hard to tell how it will end. Where do we go from here?
Your guess is as good as mine. We are absolutely in uncharted territory where you have a president who says, I won't listen.
I want to ask you about that uncharted territory part, because he's talking about a president not listening, but have administrations been held in contempt before?
They have actually, Ken. So this has happened under the Obama, Clinton, and Bush administrations. However, Johnson says those issues were resolved relatively quickly, and this one he doesn't think will be.
And speaking of that, what's the latest from the Trump administration on how they're responding?
Yeah, they plan to appeal this, Kent.
Okay, so as it goes.